Read the Riot Act to supersize your business. Sharon Horne-Ellstrom here, and our idiom today is Read the Riot Act. Read the Riot Act is, of course, from 1714 when British Parliament passed the Riot Act, which basically said that if 12 or more people were gathered illegally, riotously, or tumultuously, a magistrate could order them to disband just by reading the opening lines from the Riot Act. And if they didn't break it up, if they didn't disband and go their separate ways within an hour, they would be severely punished. Over the years, this came to mean anytime somebody was severely threatened or scolded or warned that they would severely be, they'd be severe consequences if they didn't cease and desist whatever it was that they were doing. This became known as reading someone the Riot Act. Well, how on earth does this apply to our businesses? What the heck is this reading the Riot Act? And how on earth would scolding someone or severely warning them being a good thing for growing our businesses? Well, I think it has everything to do with leadership, right? Leaders set the tone and create the environment and the culture for their organization, whether you're the owner of the business or in upper level management, like in corporate America when I was there. You set the tone for everyone else that reports to you and works to you by modeling the behavior that you expect, by clearly stating your expectations and holding people accountable to those expectations. And you can do that in a way that is rules based, and hey, these are the rules, these are the guidelines, these are exactly what you need to follow, or you're going to get fired. In corporate America, it's always, or you're going to get fired, or you're going to lose your job, or you're going to get, time off. Same like in school, if you broke the rules of school, you were in the principal's office. If you did it a bad thing, a super bad thing, you were expelled. You were kicked out of the school, which is a pretty severe punishment for most people. If you break the laws of society, you will be punished and probably go to jail. If you riot back in the olden days, you would be punished. Not sure what's going to happen with all the things that have been going on in America, but that's not for me to decide. I'm not the judge and jury in those instances. But I believe personally that we're all 100% responsible for our actions. And if we choose to do something illegal, then we need to be held accountable and responsible for those actions. And it's not about scolding or warning, it's about being responsible. Leaders also need to be 100% responsible. They need to set the example and do what they say they're going to do, not tell people to do things. You can be a loudmouth jerk or an a-hole or a b, whatever you want to be called, depending on your gender usually. Or you can lead based on rules and strict guidelines. Most human beings don't respond very positively to that. And I will admit that when I was younger, I was a lot more by the book, these are the rules, this is the company line, we're going to all toe it, than I was leading from a place of principles and what I believed was 100% right and what I thought was right. But once I got my own businesses, guess what? I got to set the tone and hey, this is what's right, this is how we act, these are the principles and the values and the mores and the culture that we're creating as an organization, and either you fit with that or you don't. And then I realized it was my job to make sure I was bringing in human beings, number one, that had the skills and the abilities, but also the cultural and the values fit for the organization, for our business. And if you do that, then you don't ever have to read anyone the Riot Act. And so as I got older and as I got better at hiring, as I became a better leader, miraculously, I wasn't upset. Things didn't go wrong. People knew what to expect, and things ran more smoothly than when I was younger and living from my ego and thinking, hey, it's my way or the highway. Anybody else ever done that? Felt that way? But if we create the culture, if we create the vision, if we make sure we have a good fit, and those are all leadership responsibilities, right? They all fall to the person that's in charge of the organization to create those things in the organization. The cool thing about having our own businesses and growing our own businesses is that we get to do that. Now, do we make mistakes? And do we sometimes find that we hire people that don't fit? Absolutely. Do we find that sometimes the culture creates itself if we're not paying attention and we have to correct and make changes in the culture? Throughout my 37 years in the Italian food manufacturing business, most of the time we had an incredible culture. But there was a time when I first bought my sister out of that business where we had some cultural mismatches in terms of what was expected in the organization. And that meant we had to have some human beings and some human resource changes, and it wasn't awesome, it wasn't super comfortable, but it needed to happen in order to create and maintain the culture that we wanted to have for that organization. People need to know what you expect of them. That's one of the biggest things I find in organizations that I work with nowadays, is that it's not usually a human being problem, although human beings are always blamed. Whenever there's a challenge or a problem in any organization, everyone is quick to point fingers and blame specific people or a specific individual. And it almost is never, the root cause anyway, is almost never human based. It's always system based, or how we're doing something. And a lot of times that just falls back to something wasn't set up to handle things in a good, proper way. Or, it's usually a communication problem, or a system with how things are produced or managed or led, or how checks and balances are put into the organization, that problems arise. It almost always, the root cause isn't somebody's being a bad person. All of us human beings, we're trying to do the best we can with what we've got at any given time, in any given situation or environment that we're in. And if the environment doesn't fit for us or match for us, sometimes it shows up like human resource problems. But it usually isn't. A human being usually isn't to blame. It's usually a system that's to blame. And if you fix the system, amazingly, you don't have any human resource problems anymore. So, read the Riot Act. I would love to know if you have experience reading the Riot Act or being read the Riot Act. I worked for an organization in corporate America who shall remain nameless, but we had 7 different unions operating in that organization. And I think I was the only woman there, and I think I racked up more grievances, literally written grievances, in the 5 years I was there than all other managers combined in the history of the organization. So I grew up in a family of hardworking, hands-on, family-owned business type organization, and it was really hard for me to not stick my nose in and stick my hands in everybody's business, which was part of my job there, which was part of my role. But that meant that I racked up a lot of people that were yelling and screaming at me. I think if my union rep wasn't screaming at me and reading me the Riot Act at least once a day in that job, there was something wrong. Usually he was sick or he was out that day, but somehow every single day I was getting screamed at and yelled at and read the Riot Act. It didn't feel very good. It was an organization that I was glad to move on to the next corporate role from, because it was not very healthy for me or for the people working in it. If people are always upset and it's a tumultuous environment, it doesn't have to be riotous to be tumultuous or chaotic. And if it's a chaotic, high emotion, high negative energy environment, it's not really good for anybody. So it definitely wasn't good for me. So share in the comments below your stories of reading the Riot Act or being read the Riot Act. That would be kind of some fun conversation for today. And go out and make an awesome day. And I will, of course, be with you tomorrow with another interesting idiom. What does it mean? Where does it come from? And how might you apply it to your business right now? And guess what? Even though it sounds kind of harsh when we say, hey, it's a leadership issue and it's up to me to fix, guess what? That means we can fix it. All right. Have a great day. Bye.